So, this is another edition, another episode of Uncommon Knowledge, and I'm here with my friend, my colleague, La-Toya Scott, Assistant Professor of English at Sam Houston State University. I just came back from Gainesville, and she's a Gator, so I don't know how this conversation is going to start. Maybe you could start off with where was I at? The salty something. It's a bar that I went to.
I've heard of it.
I think
Yes,
I don't
but
remember what
I'm
it's called.
losing the name.
The salty something. I was there. I swear I was there. I watched the Gators basketball team get a victory. Number three in
Mhm.
the country currently, right? Football team, not
Put some
so much
respect
right
on our
now.
name.
Not too much right now. You know what I'm saying? But she's a Florida gal, and so
Yes.
you're a Seminole, a Bull, and a Gator.
Mhm. Yes. Oh, the trifecta. Yes.
Scholar of American Studies,
Yeah.
and I like to say it's a scholar of African American Studies as well.
Yes.
And also, one of my favorite quote unquote influencers, right? Like you have a presence online that is very unique for an academic, in that I think your voice resonates in spaces that are very mainstream to an
Mhm.
extent, right? And I think you also distill some of the things that we do theoretically and things that we do empirically in ways that should be applauded and highlighted.
Cool.
Um, and when all else fails, trust in Black women, right? That's kind of the thing that we need to do a lot more of. So I welcome you to the pod, and I thank you for you giving your time today, really.
Thank you for having me.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Full disclosure. So we are in a writing group together that we don't attend, that we should attend.
You gonna put our business out there?
It's fine. It's okay. But I will say this, I think the writing group has done wonders for me learning about what individuals are doing that are coming along the pipeline. And I myself was in that pipeline at one point and still, I guess to an extent, am in that like tenure track hustle, right? Um,
Mhm.
One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is like, well, as you were sort of finding your project or your
Mhm.
puzzle,
Mhm.
was there ever a point where you felt like you might not be able to center blackness the way you wanted to?
That's a great question. I think coming into academia, there's always this concern, especially when you're occupying white spaces, because I went to predominantly white institutions, that one, I'm not going to see people that look like me. Two, I'm not going to have faculty or mentors that look like me. And three, if when I occupy that space, they're not going to be accepting that Blackness is critical to my study, right? And so confronting all of that when I first was getting my master's,
Mhm.
right? I came in my cohort, one of two Black people. There was only one Black professor,
Wow.
and I had a very Black ass interest. And so I really shout out to Dr. Lemons, Dr. Gary Lemons. He passed in 2024.
Wow.
And that was tragic. And that's a
Hmm.
whole nother discussion because the
Yeah.
man was gone for like a month at University of South Florida and they didn't even know he was dead. And so, oh yes.
Wow.
They were
Oh,
like,
wow.
we noticed he was missing from the meetings for a month, but we didn't know he was dead.
Yeesh.
That's another conversation, okay? Being Black in academia.
Yes.
But he really took me under his wing when I came into the program, and that was amid feeling like, okay, I know what I want to do, which I'm studying Blackness. Specifically, I want to study Black women, and I want to look at Black women that were writing during times of enslavement, right? Especially memoir. And
Mm.
so when I was getting into reading stories, I also liked storytelling. So to be able
Mm.
to read how Black women during that time and century, so women like Elizabeth Keckley, right? Eliza Potter, right?
Mm.
Were able to create their work
Yeah.
amid so much trauma. I was like, okay, I want to dig into this. What is this frame of thought? Oh my gosh, we have Black feminism. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
we have Patricia Hills Collins. We're looking
Yeah.
into Patrick
Hmm.
Ford. We're looking into, so many critical spheres. And all at once, it's like, oh my gosh, things that, through a K through 12 system, you're not going to be exposed to or even know exist. So
Mm.
the challenge, I really will say, was a lot of it I was protected from because I had a mentor that advocated for my project every step of the way.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now I'll say this, like I often use, feminism and I say it's the F word. And I throw it out there in a way where I feel like it's a lightning rod in some regards, but I also feel like in the last decade or so, feminism has turned into something that is popular and something that is, I guess, has been sort of I feel like it's almost like ranch dressing. It can be thrown in almost any scenario,
Yeah.
and it can be made to feel like it works there, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
guess from your perspective, when we sit in, I guess what we would call fourth wave feminism,
Hmm.
where do you feel like the voice and perspective of Black women fits within the canon currently?
Hmm. I feel like it's been there for a while. It's whether or not the audience wants to acknowledge it.
Mm,
So when we have things like the Combahee Collective, right? Or looking at, the buzzword
yeah,
intersectionality. You hear that a lot through academia, but you won't acknowledge the Black woman
where it
that
starts,
coined
yeah,
that,
where it starts.
right? You won't acknowledge Kimberly Crenshaw or even connect
Mm,
her to founding or foundationalizing critical race theory,
mm,
right? But we want to use these buzzwords and forget the Black woman that brought it to term. So I feel
mhm,
like it's always been there. It's just whether or not you're acknowledging the faces behind it. It goes the same way for like even, oh, Me Too. That became so popular, but we wanted to acknowledge the white woman that made it popular on social media
mhm.
when the Black woman has been putting it all over media for years, right? So it's there. It's just who are you gonna acknowledge in connection to these buzzwords and terms and movements?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm teaching right now a class called Race, Class, Gender, and the Media. That's the new title of this course.
Mm.
It used to be called Minorities, Women in the Media, but it's actually one of the core courses in our curriculum now. It's the only course that really fulfills what we now call inclusive excellence requirement.
Yeah.
Um, Week 3 of that course every year, I get to talking about bell hooks and the oppositional gaze.
Mm.
And I guess I'm wondering in this environment, in this climate that we're in, how are you, I guess, situating the writing of bell hooks in this time? But then also, um, who are some newer authors, I guess younger authors that are emerging that you think are, I guess, on the tree of that of which bell hooks sort of rooted?
That's a good question. Um, So going back to when I was doing my master's, I happened to take a class that my mentor was teaching, and
Hmm.
it was a bell hooks class. And
Wow.
we actually got to take it because bell hooks led his dissertation. She
Wow.
chaired Dr. Gary Lemon's dis.
So he was in Ohio at the okay, because I want to say she was in Ohio. Where was she at? Was she at Oberlin or was she somewhere in Ohio, I think?
I'm not sure the university, but it was
Uh,
on his heart
okay.
to follow in that lead. And like, when he dropped out, I was like, oh, for real? He was like, yeah, she
Yeah,
that's
that's
right.
different. That's
Yeah,
different.
that's real different.
Yeah.
Okay, so we about to take this course. And so every reading that we had each week was bell hooks. And I
Hmm.
never collected so many books on one person. She has like 30, more than 30.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, she's the cat. is the beginning of the canon. If we're gonna talk Black feminism, she's
Right?
there.
Yeah, and it went there. So when one of the books that stood out to me was Teaching to Transgress.
Okay.
And what I really like about that book, especially in this day and age, is what are you teaching that's just is going to live outside of this classroom and really make impact as we navigate the world and not
Mm,
just for a paper, right? What
mm,
are we looking to transgress?
right.
And so, in the face of what's happening right now, right? I'm thinking about, okay, what's happening with education? What's happening with this erasure of Black history in banned books, which happen to all be
Yeah.
Black? And even now, career fields that are targeting women and telling them that their degree is not even professional, right? Where are we going to speak in order to transgress?
Yeah.
And that is in the legacy of bell hooks, right? And I'm even thinking about even in media, right? Technology.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically, when we're looking not just with writers or people in academia, but doers in community, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm thinking even with my media studies, when I was looking at digital ethnographic studies, I'm looking at In the Wake, I'm looking at Catherine Knight Steele and her work that she's
Yeah.
doing in
Yeah.
Black
Yeah.
feminist digital media, right?
I just had her on the pod not too long ago, maybe a
For
few
real?
months ago. Yeah, yeah, she's phenomenal. I mean, first off, she's smart as all get up, but Chicago, another connection there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you have Brittany Cooper, Eloquent
Mhm.
Rage, right? You
Mm,
have Roxanne Gay. You have these people that are doing it in the field right now,
yeah.
and they're not just talking about it or writing about it, but they're advocating and being very vocal in a place where it can bring about a lot of violence, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
I know. I guess I'll circle back because you mentioned Catherine's work, right? And this idea of Black digital feminism, right?
Mhm.
I often end up talking a lot about the ways in which Black folks have innovated in digital spaces. And I
Mm.
think sometimes when we make these declarations about, especially I'll read a study by say like Pew
Mhm.
Research where they'll say like, Black people are the power users of the internet and this, that, and the third. But I like to say that I think Black women as well as Black queer folk have been sort of at the very forefront of
Oh,
what we're sort of describing when we talk about the innovation. Um, I guess I would love to hear your thoughts on why is it that we don't tend to make that delineation between the idea that Black voices,
yeah.
yes, we tend to create and innovate in digital spaces, but I think time and time again, it's been Black women and Black queer folks that have, tended to really move the needle when we're talking about the innovation that has occurred, specifically on social media platforms. Why do you think that we sort of, I don't know, I feel like there's a reticence to
Mhm.
I guess, foreground that in the conversation.
Hmm. Do you, I hate to answer a question with a question, but do you
For
think
sure. You do it.
no, no, for real. But quick note, do you think that it may have to do with this kind of um historical separation between Black activism and queerness? So I'm thinking
Mm.
immediately about even going back to the civil rights movement. People will
Wow.
acknowledge MLK speech, but they won't acknowledge the gay man, the gay Black man that helped pray. People love Baldwin, but they won't
Yeah.
talk about his gay lovers,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a weird thing to me. I think more and more, especially being that I'm in a department of journalism, you
hmm,
know, my class we watched yesterday, we literally watched Eyes on the Prize on Hallowed Ground, which is on HBO Max. And it's pretty much like a walking, living revision of the civil rights movement in certain ways, where it acknowledges what Eyes on the Prize did originally, what Harry Hampton was trying to do in terms of just giving voices to the voiceless, right? But it sort of revises it in a way where we also get an understanding that there were queer as well as women voices that were in the background, in the shadows, right? And there was a purpose to sort of saying, hey, we're going to allow our men to sort of lead and be the figureheads of this thing, but we're going to orchestrate and organize behind them.
Mhm.
And as much as that was then, I don't know if now we necessarily have to, I mean, I come up from the era of the Million Man March and Farrakhan saying, the black man has to lead and da 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 and all of that. But I don't know if that's the case in today's environment where necessarily it shouldn't be taboo
Yeah.
to talk about these things. I guess I can gain an understanding of why maybe we don't highlight queer voices the way that we should.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of Black women, one of the things that I had discussed even with Catherine, right, was we talk about folks like say a Lovey who's online and is sort of saying her piece in ways that, moves and shakes in spaces. When I think about like Patrice Cullors, when I think about like Black Lives Matter was really the Black women
Hmm.
saying our lives matter. You know what I mean? Like that's where I sit with it. I'm like,
Hmm.
yes, Black folk online kind of even when we were in that space of thinking about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, it was Black women who were leading those conversations to me.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
you know, granted, there were some individuals who I guess, I feel like followed behind, but I feel like when you look at like where these specific trends started,
Hmm.
hashtag activism, even when I think about like someone like Moya Bailey, right, where she happened to come to Northwestern right as I was leaving, and most folks think about her from Misogynoir and her research, but I go back to thinking about her with Nelly coming to Spelman's campus and like her leading that sort of I want to say protest against, him. He had just dropped Tip Drill and all of that. And so I think like, Black women, if we really get into the crux in the heart of like when we're talking about Black issues and the agenda for Black people, oftentimes that's where it's led from. And I think even if we're thinking about numbers,
Hmm.
even here where I am in South Carolina, we're talking 8 to 1 Black women to Black men. So
Yeah.
just sheer, statistics tell us that Black women are the most educated in the space. But we don't tend to want to talk about it. And I guess that's my interest in sort of posing that to you, because I think in the midst of some of even the conversations we have as researchers and
Yeah.
academics, um, we tippy toe around certain things. And
Mhm.
I guess I wonder, just you being from your positionality,
Mhm.
how that may have impacted you along the way on your journey.
Well, I mean, really, when we're talking about Black women and activism, so I'm coming out with a book right now, and one of the major chapters of my book came from when I was doing my study on Black women in a certain student organization. It was a student organization at the time. I don't know if you heard of Dream Defenders of Florida.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Phil Agnew, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, but people don't really talk about the women that help Phil. I know Phil. The women that help Phil make that organization what it is,
Wow.
right? And
Wow.
so I was in Tallahassee when
Oh,
Dream
wow.
Defender started.
Okay.
Yes. And I was there when they did the historical sit-in at the Capitol when they tried to get a session with Rick Scott, right?
Hmm.
After George Zimmerman was declared innocent, right? And it started the longest historical sit-in at the Capitol, which was 31 days and 30 nights,
Wow.
right? And while I was in school, a lot of my friends that were leads in that organization that were Black women,
Hmm.
right? they helped to organize that sit-in. And I'm talking about they were getting aid, they were getting food from all different states and even countries because at the end of the day, they would lock them in and they would sit in, right? And so I came back to those women that were a part of that movement, right? And I did a comparative analysis of their grassroots practices and how that then could be compared to what they did to mobilize and organize during 2020 after George Floyd, right?
Mm.
And so it made a very interesting conversation because it's like, well, y'all did on the boots on the ground in 2014, right?
Mhm.
2013,
Mhm.
2014, right? But how were y'all able to organize and mobilize with this new kind of space that we're in with digital technology and amid a governmental shutdown because of COVID,
Mm.
right? So now how are y'all using the digital space in order to get the results that you were looking for in a way that could compare to what y'all try to do then, right?
Wow.
And so I ran a study. I got the Black women that were originally there, right, in 2013, 2014,
Mhm.
and I got to interview them in 2020. And I will say almost all the women were queer, right? So these are Black queer women.
Mhm.
And so acknowledging in the questions that I asked them, um, well, how did y'all do this? How did y'all
Mhm.
post on media? How did y'all meet up? What did secrecy look like? What did surveillance look like? What did the yeah, it really you just gotta read that chapter of that book. So
Oh, we gonna clock it. We gonna clock it.
but I
As the
will say
kids
just
say, you know,
yeah,
I'm old, but you know.
just overall, it really gave me a sense like, damn, y'all were working then and y'all were
Mm.
working at the time 2020 now, right? And that part doesn't get acknowledged because all we see is the face, which is,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no shade to feel, but
No, no, no. It's real. I mean, I think it's a new age version of those things. I mean, I remember um I did a not a study, but a white paper on an organization in Chicago called Louder Than a Bomb, which is, it's very much a creative arts organization centered around spoken word poetry. And Kevin Koval, is kind of seen as the face of that organization, right?
yeah.
White male, University of Chicago, educated, has the graduate degrees and the things that you kind of need credential wise. And is very much a very sharp ally to our community, right?
Mhm.
But also, I walk in that office. There's 6 or 7 black women that kind of making the things occur
Yep.
that need to happen. And also in terms of recruitment, we're talking about going into communities, talking to people. Like I saw those things happening behind closed doors. But I think overall, that's something that tends to show up a lot, where like the right hand woman when I tend to quote unquote go into spaces and partnerships, it's always a black woman, and I think that is interesting that that conversation isn't had more in a public
Mhm.
forum. I'm certain that that happens in academia, but you know the wisdom of crowds would tell us that, hey, like this is just a numbers thing. I know to I talked to my wife the other day about what she calls the mediocre black man and how the mediocre black man can lift a finger and show up and end up being a vice president, and oftentimes will lift up a black woman to be his sidekick. And it's
How
like,
did you feel about that?
well, it was clear that she was saying that I don't fall into the category of the mediocre black man. But she also was saying that, because you show up and you're articulate, that in the midst of the conversation we were having, she was saying because of that, you're given a level of privilege. And because of that privilege, you need to then also pull or with you, right? So you can always be saying like, "Oh, I help black folk all the time," but are you helping black women? It's
Yeah.
a difference, you know what I'm saying? You can say I support my wife or I do this and that, but are you supporting black women? And so I think in the midst of that, I gained a different level of understanding from her, even that like, you know, some of the things that we take for granted in the space of just saying it's for the collective, uh, sometimes it's not for the collective. It's for us. It's for it's for our egos. It's for our self-righteousness. It's for the I guess reputation that we build for ourselves. And so I guess when I talk to black women, I tend to want to ask those questions just because I've started to study black women a lot more, particularly in the context of sex work, in the context of hip hop and in the
Mhm.
context of civic organizations, and I'm seeing parallels through all three, where women are the drivers, um, but they aren't the ones who the credit gets attributed to.
Okay. Okay.
So I
Good.
don't know. I'm not trying
No,
to
no, no, no. I
get
think
off
you
course,
know,
but like that's kind of the impetus for that conversation on my end, at least. I do want to talk about hip hop though, because I
Mhm.
have you here, and I feel like pop culture is something that you're like very keen on and very like zeroed in on. Um, what are you listening to currently?
It's crazy that you asked this because my partner and I will have extensive discussions about the state of music, especially when it comes to Black music right now. And
Uh-huh.
we're listening to a lot of UK music, and I'm talking about UK R&B.
Okay. What are we talking? I mean,
Like,
let you cook. Keep cooking. Okay. Keep cooking.
like Elmi. I think he pronounced his name Elmien. Elmien. You know who Elmien is? Elmien.
Playlist type vibes. I don't, I couldn't pick out of a lineup, but yes.
Okay, okay. And just a lot of alternative stuff because it seems like right now it's stunted, right? We were
Mm.
when Meg's song, right, was a clip of it was getting popular on TikTok, right? The hook was great. And so when you hear these bomb ass hooks from these songs from artists like Meg, you like, oh, it's gonna be great. And then when the final song drops, you're like, oh, that was ass. Oh, that was so bad. And it's this repetitive thing. I mean, Mana Leo, when she dropped some of her music, I was like, okay, that's hot because she's really repping for
Hmm.
Black American women right now,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But she can't be the only one keeping it on her shoulders when back in the day it used to be a lineup. You know, you
Yeah.
was, okay, even though Nicki Minaj is very controversial right now, she was that woman, right?
Hmm.
You had
Hmm.
your Nicki, you had Cardi, you had so many women that it was like, okay, I have something to choose from. But right now, I think a lot of Black artists and Black women are making sound bites, right? That are TikTok worthy, right? And if they could
Hmm.
get those 30 seconds in on TikTok,
Right.
it's
Right.
not a full body of work. That's
Mm.
right.
Is that an indictment though on just the state of creativity more generally though? Or is it, is it because I was definitely about to go there in terms of like AI, in terms of social media. Um, I just went to Afrotech and I feel like every conversation was about AI, AI,
Yeah,
AI.
because there was an AR Black woman artist that just got a multi-million-dollar deal. You saw
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
And
And Victoria Monet is saying that it was patterned after her
yep,
likeness and voice and things of
yep.
that nature.
And
So
K
yeah.
Michelle also said the same thing. And then Kalani came out and made a statement like, that's not fair. That's disrupting art right now,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that woman that created that AI, she can't sing. She just wrote the lyrics and then
Right,
created this, right? And
right.
she had an interview with Gail, and Gail was like, "But honey, you can't sing." And she's like, "So?"
I mean, I'll give her this. She was very unapologetic about the move. Is basically saying this is the future. Get with
Yeah,
it or get
yeah,
left.
or get
And
left.
this is what we're doing. I saw Timberland has his AI
Oh
Asian
my
pop
God.
artist. You know what I'm saying? I know you got something to say about.
My gosh.
I was like, we gotta get there. We gotta get there. I was like, we gotta talk about these things because those are the things that are in the zeitgeist and in the conversations that I'm having, specifically because people see me sort of as the music person and the culture person. And
Well,
I'm
what do you think about that? Because,
yeah, on the one end, right, I think the imaginary of what AI should provide for artists is endless, right? But I think on the other end, when we're talking about identities and we're talking about actually like building out AI people and artists that we're going to project out to the world, and we're going to see biases show up in those likenesses, right? So I don't have an issue when I'm having like conversation. Like I would rather someone like Timbaland say, "Hey, I want to work with, for instance, the family of Bob Marley,
mm-hmm.
create an album that is in his legacy, in his canon, that actually is as authentic as it can be with the usage of AI to enhance what it is we're trying to do." Or when I
Okay.
look at an artist like the DOC who was in a tragic car accident that took his
Yeah.
voice, but he's been a ghostwriter for Dr. Dre, for Snoop, for a lot of artists for years.
Okay.
AI can give him his voice back to then create an album. Or when I'm talking to, say, Lupe Fiasco, and he's talking about, like, oh, well, when I'm brainstorming, I use text effects to figure out allegories, similes that I may want to use or draw from. I'm cool with that. But when we're just talking about, like, FN Mecca or
Mhm.
other AI art, these artists that are just being created from thin air, it becomes a little bit more problematic for me
Mm,
because now we have avatars
mm.
serving as, humanity, and,
Yeah.
and that can get tricky because I don't know how we can do that level of representation authentically without there being something problematic in it. Um,
Yeah.
and I have not seen it work ever. I haven't seen it work yet in a way where I could say, hey, you know, that's my thing, especially if we're representing blackness and the likeness of black people and we're
Mhm.
trusting digital tools to sort of give us the output, then
Mhm.
I just don't know if that's the way to go.
Mhm. Well, well, well.
Yeah. I mean, that's just where I sit on things, but I will say that like without 11 Labs, we don't get something like BBL Drizzy, right? Where I'm like, oh, I actually like that. You know what I mean? Like it's
But the kids are not listening to, Drizzy and stuff. They listening to like there's this artist that my cousin manages called 1900 Rugrat, and he was
oh
on
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. It was on the cover of Double XL
yeah,
for the
my
wrestling. Yeah,
cousin's
yeah.
his manager.
I'm not super familiar, but I know a little bit about it. A little bit.
So even with that artist, I look at him and I'm like, okay, you have this aesthetic and
Mhm.
this sound, and you've been created for the industry.
Is it now somewhat of a I guess to reel it back a little bit, like is there somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point where now we see digital culture sort of influencing the creative process where like artists are sort of trying to match themselves to the logics of the digital space, kind of what you were implying with like TikTok artists and people trying to create these sound bites or clip farming, for instance, right? So
Hmm.
you know, is it something where kind of it's a reversal where it used to be, I think, digital culture drew from hip hop culture and from street culture. And I think now we see the opposite happening where like street culture is sort of drawing from digital culture. Is that something that you agree with or what would your take be on that?
I think the artists now are double dipping where before they didn't care about being influencers, but
Mm-hmm.
but now they want to be not just artists, right? They
Yeah.
want influencers. And
Yeah.
so they are now dabbling in influencer culture and
Yep.
it's now impacting their music as
Yeah.
well. It's like I didn't know so much about Cardi B or the Migos or
Right.
I didn't know that much back then, but now
Right.
I know a lot because they're
Right.
always on social media and they're on social media to sell their music and their music
Mm.
is now formed from social media and influencer culture. So it's it's connected. Yeah.
I guess as someone who is present on social media, is sort of utilizing their voice on social media platforms, how do you yourself find your like your practice, I guess, of being a thought leader or an academic showing up within the logics of these platforms? Do you yourself sometimes feel pressure to sort of acquiesce to some of these like trends that occur online, or some like are you yourself trying to manipulate the algorithm, or are you trying to sort of like, be seen and heard in ways that maybe influencers or like that of an influencer might be sort of uh not accused of, but I would say like attributed to?
I think that's a great question. I think I'm so, as somebody that's in academia, and I feel like academia is already so inaccessible, or it seems inaccessible to everybody else, it is
Hmm.
nice having a space where I can kind of bridge that, right? And so, bridging something in accessible language and breaking down very critical things in a size or a way that is understandable for a mass audience, it has been challenging and it has been humbling, right? Because sometimes we get so used to being in our thought bubbles with other academics
Yeah,
that it's like people don't talk like that in real life. And you want to publish this article, but once you publish it in that journal, only two people going to read that.
yeah,
And so you took the time to write about this community, but this community don't even understand what you're saying or doing or have access to that article through that paywall, right? So when you're on a platform like TikTok,
hmm,
you are not only being able to engage in the common language that you use every day, but it not be shamed, it not be something that is now lower brow, but it's accessible to the people that you are essentially writing about and creating with. Right. And I like that aspect. And I think that became, especially as academics, really big for us when we saw the whole Hillman talk thing take off and Dr. Barlow, Leah Barlow, right,
hmm, hmm,
was kind of
hmm,
leading that on a happy mistake, right? She didn't mean to make her TikTok available to everybody. It was just supposed to be for her class. But then everybody was like, oh my gosh, I'm in an African American literature class I didn't even sign up for, but I'm here.
that's
I'm
dope.
here. So
Yeah.
it means to me that there is an audience that wants access to these things, but because of these walls that we live in academia, it doesn't seem accessible.
Wow.
So that is a calling for me, especially with my platform and even this kind of I made an organization, In-House Scholar LLC.
Mm,
I'm able to not only do my work online, which is accessible digitally on these platforms, but I'm also giving back in a way in my community through events where we could talk about these things and have the space for that outside of a university.
mm. I
Hmm.
guess I have two follow-ups on that before I move to like my roundup question. I guess the first thing would be, have you had a moment where you posted something that I guess felt like it, how do I word this? Broke out of maybe what your typical ecosystem might be, to where maybe even like your employers or people who are your colleagues saw what it is that you posted, in a way that context collapse can occur when we post things online. Um, that was the first thing I thought of, because I had, and I'll tell you a little bit of background of why I asked that, is because I talked to Saida Grundy, who's a friend of mine who's on the pod. She is at BU, Boston University, Department of Sociology. And one of the things that we had talked about was her getting doxxed after posting some of the things that she posts. And we also had a conversation. It was very candid and on
Mm,
the record about like her experiences with certain scholars, whether it was Ibram X. Kendi or Michael Eric Dyson. She's publicly like, skewered these men, right? And we were talking about that, and I think that sort of led me to thinking about that question as I was talking to you, just because I know you're someone who I don't feel like, let's be clear, I feel like you're honest online and sincere. And that often isn't in a world where people are curating everything. I think that can be jarring for those who don't like to deal in truth, right? And so I wonder if you telling your truth at times has extended to an ecosystem where maybe you don't even realize it's reaching certain folks that don't comment, that don't double tap or anything, but they're seeing it.
yeah.
Has that affected kind of your practice or your work at all? That was the first thing I was thinking about. And then the second thing I was thinking about was more so where education is headed. Do you think that that's something that more academics need to lean into? Because I think as we're sort of moving into the space of AI and moving into the space of attention spans becoming a lot shorter, and we're having students who are COVID babies who are used to sort of digital content being their mode of learning, and even short form video being their mode of learning. Is that something that more of us need to take seriously?
Yeah, great questions. To go with the first one, it's funny that you mentioned this because not too long ago, I had ran into Kiese Lehman at an event here in
Hmm.
Houston, right?
Hmm.
I was like, man, like I haven't seen you on Instagram for a while. What's happening? And he's like, I've been doxxed. So
Real,
and
very real.
but he is very like blunt on his social media. If you follow his Instagram, he is
Hmm.
like he goes there. And
Mm.
I think part of it is in academia, if you have tenure, if you have tenure, there's a way that you move that is very different, right?
Hmm.
For me, still working through the system, I make sure that I stay aligned with what I say I'm doing and that I'm studying and what is my work, right?
Yeah.
My work is in Black literature and Black culture and digital ethnographic study. So I
Hmm.
make sure that anything that I put online, it is truth, it is fact based, and I'm not saying anything that is purely on emotion, right? And if
Hmm.
it is led with emotion, I have the facts and the receipts to bring that up. Um, so one of my videos this year, I had posted about the term that was going viral online. It was called, oh, Black fatigue, right? And
Mm.
you remember that, right? Right?
Sure do.
We know that Black fatigue was coined by a Black woman, and it's meant to incite this kind of overall tiredness that us we have with a white supremacist system,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Hmm.
But then white folks took it, right, and made it about, oh, I'm tired of Black folks too. Rose, I'm
Tell us
done
how you really feel.
now. Da, 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 da. So I made a response video to a couple white folks that had used Black fatigue in that way.
Hmm.
Like, well, we were if you were tired, you would have let us go back to Africa when it
Mm.
was the Back to Africa movement, right? Oh
Mm.
wait, y'all stopped that. Y'all
Mm.
killed the agreements that we had for that plot of land, right?
Mm.
Marcus Garvey, he could even let the ships leave. Okay, if
Mm.
y'all were so tired, why don't you let us, stay away from y'all and make these towns our own? Oh, wait, we tried making a Black town. Y'all burnt that down. Fuck. Okay. If y'all are so tired, why don't we, move into our own neighborhoods,
Mm.
right? And we just stay away from, oh, wait, gentrification. Y'all go ahead and put a avocado and bread shop with a matcha shop right down the street, right? And so it's like urbanization. Like, if y'all are so tired, and we always try to leave. Obviously, you're not so tired then. Because history shows and the numbers show and the facts show, right? That video got 1 million views.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
yes. If
Sheesh.
I pull it up, that video got over 5,000 comments, 25K shares, 168,000 likes.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. And so I never thought that video was gonna take off.
Mhm.
But it was something that was very on brand for what my line of work was. So there wasn't fear there. It was I'm talking about things in a society that now we have to engage with because this is the way our lives are set up.
Yeah.
And there can't be this, oh, we're going to let these narratives continue. And we have this privilege in knowing this knowledge in order to combat a lot of these narratives that are anchored in misinformation, right?
Mhm.
Now, going to your second part of that question, thinking about, well, what is our responsibility as academics to keep up with the time, right? And I think more and more of us need to be okay with the fact that our language, what we do, and how we get information, it needs to include how our students are now engaging with the world, right? And so if they are online and they're getting this information, we need to acknowledge, oh, okay, you saw that video on TikTok. Now
Right.
it's part of digital culture. And now it is thematic to some of the material that we have in class. Let's talk about that. Let's open the floor
Mm.
for that. How did you take that? Right?
That's real. That's
Yeah.
real. I mean, to tie this all up in a bow, I have a question that I have been asking every single person that has been on the podcast since maybe episode 5. We do a lot of work in which we think about resistance and resilience, um, not always foregrounding Black joy.
Mm.
Um, what is a piece of media? It could be any medium, any influencer, it can be a company, a network, whatever. What brings you joy in today's media landscape?
Oh, uh, that is such a that's a great question.
I'm
Okay,
okay at this. I'm decent. I'm getting better
okay.
at asking these
So
questions.
that's a really great question. Damn, you're good.
I'm getting better.
Okay, so I don't know if you remember during 2020 when we were locked in and we just saw an onslaught of Black violence. It was first Ahmaud Arbery, then it was Breonna Taylor, and then it was George Floyd. Netflix had really did something special during that time, which was, well, I'm bringing back Black classics, right? So then all
Mm.
of a sudden we saw offered on Netflix Girlfriends, One on One. I don't know if you remember
I
that?
do
It was
remember
like a feel good sensation because when you turned on the TV and the news, all you saw was Black Death, right? But then Netflix was like, you know what? I'm gonna give y'all something amid this time and
that.
drop all these Black classics. So
Mm.
as far as media, I still like to go back to those classics,
Mm.
right? So I still find myself going back to Girlfriends or One on One or the Parkers, right? They also brought that back. Um, and I just think about a happier time, and it's not necessarily contemporary in a sense, but there's something to where I'm watching those shows with new eyes in this day and age.
Mm.
I'm like, oh my gosh,
Talk about
like Mara Brock Akil, she gave us complicated characters, and I don't know if I like Joan now that I'm
No, it's
and
some things. It's some things. As an adult, I'm like now, like, oh, okay. Even some of these, some of the I guess stories and narratives around marriage, I have a better
mm,
idea around those stories, why they were, I guess, resonating with people
yeah,
differently than I did when I was a teenager, or differently than I even did as a single 20, 30 some year old, right? So,
yeah,
and even parenting, those things now, those little things that were inserted into some of these programs, to your point, I had I was at a lounge the other day and I gave my debit card to pay the tab and the bartender, probably the waitress, was probably around she couldn't have been more than 25, 26. She looks
Yeah.
at my card and she says, Jabari, that's the son on girlfriend. And
I mean,
I was
Jungle
like,
Gym.
first off, how do you know that reference? Like, not that you can't, but like I didn't expect that one. I get Jabari Parker, NBA. I get, I've had
That's
people
very specific. Like,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, kind of. I get a lot.
Maya's son, Jabari.
I even got the professor on Power was named Jabari. He got killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible. His name was Jabari Reynolds. And I'm like, of all the references, you pulled out the one from like my childhood.
Yeah.
But that's to your point, I think the rebooting and the redistribution of these shows has given them new life in ways that make them feel new to
Mhm.
folks in my son's generation. So I think it's pretty cool. You may have me go to Netflix when this conversation is over.
Look at it. I think they were so strategic. I was like, y'all, okay.
For shit show, man. For shit show. Well, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And if no one has not told you over the course of this semester that you were A1 since day one, you heard it today.
Ew.
And, we will have more conversations like this, but I'm just thankful that you're here in this moment to share because I think these types of conversations and your type of scholarship is what I like to tell people that are in grad school right now they should model themselves after. So I hope that you don't take that with a grain of salt. And again, I thank you for your time. And this has been a wonderful episode of Uncommon Knowledge, Dr. La-Toya Scott. Book, plug the book. When is
Oh,
it? When is it
yes.
coming? What
So
is
my
the
book,
title?
oh, man. Oh, you're gonna love this title.
Uh-oh.
So my book
Uh-oh.
is called Oh my gosh. My book is called From Hush in Hush to Harbor: Black
Hmm.
Sanctuaries from Slavery to Trump's America. And it's coming out July 16, 2026.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. What's the press?
Rutgers University Press. Oh
Ooh,
yeah, I know.
go off then. Okay.
Ah,
Tenure is loading soon. We got you. We got you. We got you. Well, again, man, thank you for your time, and I'm sure we'll have some offline conversation.
yes, for sure, for sure. Thank you for having me.
No, man, for sure. This will be on Substack very soon, and we will also have this on all streaming platforms in about a month.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
good.